Hi everyone, welcome to It's Tea Time, and it's time to spill the tea. So 2021, I am rolling out a few different things. I've had some time to think about things in 2020. And for some of you who have been following me, I started doing videos just to get comfortable being in front of the camera. And so my whole intention behind these videos is because I want to inspire people. I want to help to transform people. And I want to do it by educating, motivating, inspiring, and sharing stories. So I'm coming out with a new series that I want to add on to my channel, which is called the Phoenix Chronicles. And everybody loves a story about how someone has gone through some really difficult times or difficult situations, and they somehow were able to rise out of the ashes. And I'm sure for most of us, we have had some sort of story where we've had to overcome something extremely difficult in our lives, or we probably have had several things happen in our lives where we've had to overcome it. And so I feel like right now, with everything that's going on in the world, it's good to hear some heartwarming stories and stories about how different people were able to overcome their challenges and to make changes in their life. So the very first story that I actually want to highlight is me. And just so you know, this is just to help others feel like they're not alone. I'm not doing this for attention towards myself or anything. I really want to share my story because I hope that I can inspire someone else who has gone through similar things, and to let them know, you're not alone, and to let you know that there is a way out, and there is a way where, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And, sometimes when we are going through things that are very extreme and difficult and challenging, sometimes we feel like, am I ever going to get out of this situation? And so the reason why I want to share my own personal story, but why I want to share other people's stories, is to show you, yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and there is a way where it's some way you are going to come out of it. So I'll start with my story. And so for me, I have been through many, many challenges in my life. And I feel like the Phoenix is definitely a huge symbol in my life. I'll start with my childhood. My childhood was pretty rough. I had a father who was extremely physically and emotionally and mentally abusive. So as a child, some of my earliest memories, around like the age of 5, my father used to beat me, and it was just because, I would do something to make him mad, and I was just being a child, but he would lose his temper and he would beat me. I mean, an example is I would come home a little bit late from playing outside with my friends, and because I didn't come home on time, he would make me lay down on the floor, and he would take a big stick and he would beat my bottom until I was raw, and until I could no longer sit or do anything on my bottom. I remember taking baths and it being so painful to like sit on my butt. And he would even do some cruel things where I wouldn't be able to understand my math, and he would try to help me, and for some reason I wasn't able to understand, and he would make me go down to the basement and kneel on my knees on a cement floor, and he would beat me. And these were different things that just some examples of things that he did. So I definitely grew up in an environment where my father was really abusive. I even saw my father almost kill my mother. When I was around 10, he was chasing my mom around the house with a knife. And he even, at some point, when he was able to pin her down, he tried to strangle her. And it was pretty brutal. And he did all of this in front of me. And it was quite traumatic. At that point, thankfully, my mom got out of that situation and she divorced my dad, but then that was traumatizing in itself. My parents splitting up, and for a moment there, my father would not allow me to see my mother. And that was super hard on me as a 10-year-old, not being able to see my mom for several months. And then at that point in time too, my mom also had a little bit of a cancer scare. And so it was just a really tough time. So with all of the abuse that I had, it was pretty normal that in middle school in general, most of us have a hard time in middle school. But I especially had really low self-esteem. And by the time I hit high school, I then developed an eating disorder. I was extremely overweight, probably because of everything that was going on in my life. I had put on a good amount of weight. By the time I believe I was 13 or 14, I was close to 200 pounds. I was, I think, at my heaviest around 190 pounds. But then all of a sudden I discovered exercise and diet. And I would most definitely say that at some point I developed orthorexia, which is where I compulsively exercised and I was obsessive about my diet. I remember my lunch used to be an orange or an apple, but then I would exercise for like 3 hours straight every night. It definitely was not healthy, and I do remember my best friend and her parents being very concerned because I had lost so much weight. And my best friend's mom had even told her, you know, like, I feel worried about tea. But I hid it, and I told them that I was losing weight in a healthy way. I did lose all the weight, but pretty much I would say that I suffered from orthorexia for many years. I mean, at this point, I'm no longer super obsessed with exercise, but that was something I had to overcome for a long time. And quite honestly, it's because I've had so many injuries that I've had to be easier on my body. So that is definitely something that I had to overcome as well. In college, I think it was my junior year, I started suffering from depression. And I went into a really deep depression by the time I was definitely in my junior year, but also my senior year. I actually almost got kicked out of college because my grades had dropped so badly and I didn't study. And I remember I had gained weight because all I ever did was drink alcohol and smoke pot and eat because I was just so depressed. I was just trying to numb myself. And that was when I would say, started really having bouts of depression. And I also went through a really hard period where I realized that my father was pretty detrimental to me, and I disowned my father. So I went through a period of not speaking to my father, just because I felt like I finally realized that he was quite abusive. So that was also a really tough moment for me. But the good thing is in college I ended up finding spirituality. But I'll get more into that when we talk about how I was able to overcome all of these challenges that I've experienced. And then I got married at a pretty young age, pretty much to my very first serious relationship. You know, like a lot of people, I had to work through my father issues. As I had shared, my father was highly abusive. My ex-husband definitely was not physically abusive, but it took me many years to figure out that he was pretty emotionally abusive. It wasn't the outright like you're dumb, you're stupid, or things like that, but he was extremely critical, extremely judgmental. But I didn't realize that it was really abuse until after being with him for 12 years. And it took a lot of courage to finally leave my marriage. I was extremely unhappy. And in a lot of ways, it was because I had my son. And I realized that I didn't want to raise my son in an abusive environment. So that really was what helped me to leave my unhappy marriage was I wanted to create a better future for my son. Eventually, it became a better future for me, but that was really what moved me to leave my ex-husband. And in all honesty, like a lot of women, I feel like I had completely lost myself in my marriage. So it definitely took me a good couple of years to just refine myself, to figure out who is T, like who am I, what gives me joy, what do I like to do, do I want to do with myself. It took me a good couple of years to find myself. And throughout that time, there was lots of ups and downs and trying to figure out who T was again. And at some point, I started dating again, which was fun because I definitely got to sow my oats. I pretty much, like I said, married my very first serious boyfriend. And prior to that, I didn't really have any serious boyfriends. So I went out and I dated. And I dated a lot. And I had so much heartbreak just because I'm a lover, and every person that I, you know, committed my time to, I loved wholeheartedly, and I experienced so much heartache. And even though I thought I had worked through a lot of my father issues, a lot of that was still resurfacing with the type of men that I was choosing. And in particular, my very first serious relationship after my marriage was with a man. I won't say his name, but I completely fell in love with him. And I thought he had completely fallen in love with me. And even though the relationship was less than a year long, I felt like this relationship was like the relationship of my life. It was not 12 years like it was when I was with my ex-husband, but I felt like I finally found someone who knew how to love me the way I needed to be loved. I will say that this man taught me, my love language, and he taught me that this is how you need to be loved. And I will definitely say that I'm super grateful that he showed me that. But then in a lot of ways, I discovered that he had lied to me a lot, and I didn't realize all the lies. And then he ended the relationship with, pretty much with no warning. And I was completely heartbroken. And so then I went through another deep depression for about a year and a half. And during that time, I did have my business, but I let my business completely fall apart. Financially, I had fallen apart. Eventually, I had to file for bankruptcy because I had gone into this deep, deep, deep depression. And there were many times when I wanted to kill myself, many times where I remember laying on the floor in the fetal position and asking God to take me. And really what saved me was my son, knowing that I had a son that I had to take care of and that he loved me, and I knew that I couldn't end my life because of my son. So I always say that my son is really what saved me and kept me alive. Sorry, I'm getting emotional, but I really feel like it's important for me to share my story for those of you who have gone through the same. So after all of that, I was able to bounce back, and then eventually, I kind of fell back into financial problems again. And that's been a really, really tough, learning how to be responsible with my finances, learning how to budget. And I will definitely say that I'm in a much better place, although I still have lots of work to do. And then also through like lots of dating trials and tribulations, every person that I dated, and I dated a lot of men, actually just really taught me a lot about myself. But throughout that journey for me was about self-love and learning to love myself and seeing the worth in myself. And so I'll go more into like how I was able to heal myself. But, these are just some of the things that I had gone through. But I definitely throughout all of this, I definitely had depression. So, my Phoenix rising moments. Here we go. We get to the good parts here. How was I able to overcome and challenge a lot of these moments? So in college, I remember the moment when I was so depressed. I was about to graduate from college and I didn't know what to do with my life. And so I went to this job fair that everybody at my school was going to. And I remember hanging out at this job fair and it just felt stupid. I didn't want to be a part of it. And so there was a Barnes and Noble next to this conference center. And so I went in there and somehow I stumbled upon the self-help book section. And I started reading this book called In the Meantime by Iyanla Van Zandt. I don't even know, what it is that brought me to that book section and what it is that brought me to that book. All I know is that it was, in the grace of spirit, God, whatever you want to call it. And I started reading that book and I felt like that book was written for me. And from that moment, it changed my life. From that moment, I was always on the path of self-growth, spirituality. And then eventually one of my best friends, he also had kind of jumped on this spirituality train, and he introduced me to my first spiritual teacher, and her name is Hope. And through her, I learned about meditation, I learned about the spirit world, I learned about spirituality, I learned about the metaphysical world, and it brought me to like this high. Prior to that, I would probably say that I suffered from alcoholism as well. I would used to drown myself in alcohol. But spirituality was the first time that I actually was able to experience a very natural high, because I was actually able to go to a place that I would call home, where I came from. And it felt so good. It felt so loving. And that was definitely the start of my spiritual life. Prior to that, my parents were not very spiritual people. So I didn't really have a foundation of spirituality. But at that moment in time, that was what helped me to start to lift out of my depression, when it came to what am I going to do with my life? I'm about to graduate and I don't know what to do. So that was extremely helpful for me. And Hope, my teacher, she taught me so much, and she really helped to put me on this path and where I am now. I think thanks to her and thanks to my best friend Jeffrey, but also my spirit guides. That's where my path to spirituality started, and in so many ways that has helped me. So when my divorce happened, obviously I had a very hard time. It was really hard to leave my husband. And it was hard to go from seeing my son every day to not seeing my son every day, but also being in this place where I felt completely lost. And it was once again my spirituality that pulled me through. And my mother, the support of having someone who loves you meant so much. And my mother came and stayed with me for a few months, and that really helped me to get back onto my feet. So definitely that for me was super helpful. And then when it came to, after my heartbreak with the man that broke my heart completely, I knew that I had to go on to a journey of self-love. And that was really what I focused on. I would do the things that they tell you to do, like look in the mirror and to tell yourself that you love yourself. I did lots of therapy, traditional therapy, but I also did a lot of spiritual therapy. So that really helped to lift me up. And honestly, the moments when I was on the floor, shaking and crying and asking for God to take me, I actually felt spirit, and I felt spirit lift me up. I felt spirit talking to me, telling me that it's not my time to go. I could really feel the presence of angels and spirit guides holding me up. And it's really hard to articulate in words, but in a lot of ways, that is what gave me strength. And I would pray for strength. I would pray for support. And I really felt like the universe brought me people, lovely friends, but also just like the support of my family, and my son. My son always happened to step in at the right moments. So I really felt like, with the grace of God, I was able to get through, these really, really tough moments. And so what I will say that 2020 taught me so much. Once again, just when you think the work is done, it's not. The work is actually never done. The path of self-awareness and consciousness is actually something that is ongoing. And in 2020, I was left unemployed because I couldn't work. So I felt like Spirit pretty much told me, T, it's time to really look at the things that you need to work on. So once again, self-love. And I thought, self-love again? I felt like I've worked on that before. But Spirit was like, no, you got to go deeper. So I really had to work on self-love. I felt like I definitely had a lack mindset, which is why I had a lot of financial issues in the past. I really realized that I really lived in this space of fear and lack, feeling like there wasn't enough. And so I also dealt with depression in 2020. Once again, I have the most loving and supportive partner, but it was really hard because he couldn't understand, how I could get so depressed and why all of a sudden I would get into these funks. And so I really had to come to terms that I suffered from depression. It took me a long time because I felt like, oh yeah, I get depressed like everybody else. But I didn't want to admit that I actually really had depression. But in 2020, it really showed me that that I have depression and that I had to take the steps to deal with it. So I really want to share with you in 2020 some of the things that I've done to help me, to help me grow and to help me to show you once again like how I felt like I rose out of the ashes. With self-love, I've been doing a lot of meditation and mantra work. And the mantra work that I do is I repeat, I love myself, I love myself, I love myself. Another mantra that I tend to repeat to myself a lot is, I am abundant, I am abundant, I am abundant. And another one is, I am open to receiving abundance. I am open to receiving love. I really realized that I wouldn't allow myself to receive love. I could give love. I could give so much love, but actually allowing myself to receive love was huge for me. And, and I think that ties in with abundance, like feeling like I actually deserve abundance, in so many ways. I'm so lucky. I had this wonderful partner, although I will tell you, I've had to date many, many, many frogs before this man came into my life. And I've done a lot of work, which is why I felt like this wonderful man came into my life. And so I feel like, you have to do the work. You have to do the inner self-work. So meditation, mantras. I had a gratitude journal for the longest time. I resisted having a gratitude journal. People would say to me all the time, T, do a gratitude journal. I'm like, that's stupid. But then I started doing a gratitude journal, and eventually I got used to doing a gratitude journal and like giving gratitude. I always thought like, oh, well, I'm giving gratitude in my head. Isn't that enough? Well, I found that actually it was better to actually write it down in your gratitude journal, and to actually be able to see all the things that you're grateful for. And eventually I did find that, the moments when something good happened, I realized it and I gave thanks to it right away. So I really felt like that was something I had to work on. And, getting back into my spiritual practice of meditation has really, brought me back to being in touch with spirit, to my angels, my spirit guides, to God. I really feel like, doing all this, every time I go into a state of meditation, I feel the abundance of love and I feel the abundance of support. And I will say that this has helped me to get through 2020 and, doing the work of self-love. I can't tell you how important it is. Once again, many times I felt like it was so stupid at first for me to tell myself that I loved myself, and especially because at first I really didn't feel it. I was just, I didn't feel that I loved myself. But it's the practice. It's the practice of like loving yourself and telling yourself that you love yourself. And eventually you actually do feel it. Now I'm telling you, I am not perfect. I'm not fully baked. I have times where I still am really hard on myself and I have to stop myself and tell myself it's okay. It's okay that I made a mistake. I still love myself. I'm still a good person. I have times where even when I'm talking to my son, I make a statement, about how I don't have money, or I make a statement about how I don't have enough of something, and I stop myself and I say, okay, stop and shift your perspective and bring it to something that is abundant. Bring it to, say something abundant, shift your perspective. This is ongoing work. This is ongoing work. I'm not in any way telling you that I'm healed and that I'm perfect. I'm not. I'm definitely not. But I will say that I'm really happy to say that I haven't had any bouts of depression since I want to say July. I definitely have some moments where I feel funky or even a little sad, but thankfully I've been able to get, I haven't had any bouts where I fall really deep into the rabbit's hole. I will say that I started taking St. John's wort, which was, I feel helpful for me. So I don't know, maybe it's helpful for you. I was ready to go on to antidepressants. Just so you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with going on antidepressants if you need to. But thankfully I was able to pull myself out and not take antidepressants. But I told myself that at any point, if I ever fall back into a deep depression, that I'm gonna go on medication. So I want to say that if you feel like you're super depressed and you've tried everything, don't be ashamed, to seek help and to take antidepressants if you feel like that's what's best for you. And so I really want to share with you that I've had so many moments where I've wanted to leave this earth, where I've wanted to kill myself, where I've had so many, I felt like, why does life suck so badly? I just don't want to be here. And I want to tell you that it's happened to me so many times. But I want to tell you that you're not alone. You're not alone. And what's really important is that you surround yourself with people who love you and that you reach out for help. Don't feel like you need to keep it to yourself. And there is forces and energies that are outside of like this physical earth, and when we reach out for help in the universe, to God, to whoever it is that you believe in, just know that there are energies that are working with you, that are co-creating with you to help you in life. I don't want to sound like super cheesy, but I do really believe that just trust that everything is going to work out for you, that there are forces that are here that want to help you, that want to see you succeed, that love you. And so I want to share with you that, I've been through a lot of heartache and a lot of pain in my life, but I'm still here. And I'm here and I want to inspire you and I want to motivate you to know to keep on going. And, when you have those moments, just baby steps. Don't even think, like, what am I going to do tomorrow? Just, do whatever it is that you need to do to feel good. And, if you're still standing here and you have been through hardships, you're here. You've been able to survive and you've been able to get through it. So let's do this. Let's do this together. You're not alone. I'm here with you. And, if you want to reach out to me, please send me a note. That would make me so happy to know that if in any way I helped you through sharing my story with you, please let me know. All right. Sending you so much love and so much peace and happiness. Take care.